And if you look on the next page, don't worry about the numbers and the pressures
That would be
of O2 and CO2.
page 515.
515,
And that would be figure
1619 and 1620.
Right.
Okay, but do take a quick look at those alveolar cells and look at this type of cell that's in here.
That would be figure 1619, right?
Yes, and that type of cell is called a macrophage. And these are a little different than the macrophages that circulate because these pretty much stay in the lungs. And that's a good thing for us. Macro means what?
Big.
Large, yeah. And a phage, phago, is eating. So these are big eating cells. And what do they eat? They eat crap that comes into our lungs. That does find its way down into the alveolar sacs. For the most part, we've got this long series of tubes that not only warm and filter not only filter but warm the air to try to trap as much garbage and keep it out of there so that by the time the air gets here, there's nothing but air. No other garbage in there. However, we have a little backup plan. We have these macrophages in case some bacteria might find their way in there. Sometimes bacteria do find their way in there and they proliferate, they grow, they multiply. And we end up with a condition known as pneumonia. Okay? Different types of pneumonia, but they involve the filling up of these air sacs with junk, garbage, fluid, cellular debris, metabolic waste from bacteria. Okay? Pneumonia can and does kill. If it involves a large enough portion of the lungs, especially at your or my age, it can kill us. So, and a lot of the pneumonia is caused by bacteria, so it can be treated with antibiotics. Some of the pneumonias are viral, so you can't treat them except stay in bed, drink plenty of fluids, and so forth.
Is it communicated from person to person?
Yes. Just by being in the room with somebody who sneezes, coughs, what have you. That's how we pick it up. Okay? You've heard of walking pneumonia, maybe? Well, when they say that, all that is it involves the lower lobes of the lung, the more dependent areas. And when I say dependent, I mean gravity is, pulls things toward the earth. And so it'll involve just a few, segments of the lower lobes. And you can walk around, go to work, do whatever. But once it starts to involve more and more of the lungs, you're going to get deathly ill. And if it's not treated, you're going to die. All right. Anything else? Okay.
Sorry, I forgot to bring in the flash drive.
Don't worry about it. We'll do it. All right. I mentioned that if you look on the next page, would be page
517.
Nope.
516.
518. Let's look at 518. And when you look at that, there you will see that reaction that I told you about.
Right.
Please go over that once or twice, just so you understand. And it's sort of intuitive if you think of it. Where is there going to be the most CO2? And that's going to be at the tissue level, where it's being produced. All of our cells, save our mature red blood cells, they use oxygen to produce energy. And in the byproduct is carbon dioxide. All right, so at the tissue level, this reaction is going to proceed in this direction. And I write those arrows that way to signify that this is a reversible reaction. Concentration driven. It goes this way at the tissues, it goes this way at the lungs. All right? In a nutshell, that is some of the important points about the respiratory system. Let me just look. Okay, real
Looks
quick.
like it's it, and that's the summary after that.
Yeah, let me just see if there's anything else I want to. Yeah, okay, we had mentioned, and I had mentioned that most of the carbon dioxide, the metabolic carbon dioxide that's produced, is carried in the blood as the bicarbonate ion. Some of it, a much smaller percentage, some CO2 will combine with hemoglobin. And if you remember, hemoglobin is the protein that carries primarily oxygen, but some of it will combine with hemoglobin and form a compound. I won't say Hg because that'll confuse you with mercury. But some of it will combine with hemoglobin to form this stuff called carb-amino-hemoglobin. And then even a smaller percentage than that, some of that CO2 will actually dissolve in the water in our blood. Okay, and a way to remember that is every time you open a beer, what comes out?
CO2.
CO2, because it's dissolved in the water in the beer. Well, some of the metabolic CO2 does get dissolved in the water in our blood, very small amount. Most of it, the greatest percentage of it, is carried as the bicarbonate ion. Okay, some of it is carried as carb-amino-hemoglobin. There's a couple of terms. I said eupnia, dyspnea. What other terms that I want you to know? Oh, and also just remember when you're looking on this page, now, just refresh yourself with oxygen transport and the hemoglobin molecule.
Okay,
And remember
that's 16.6.
yeah, some of it will combine to form carb-amino-hemoglobin.
Okay.
Let me see if there's any particular vocabulary that I want you to kind of focus on. Oh, well, let me just say this then, and then we'll wrap up. In ambient air, what we're breathing in now, the primary gas in the air that we breathe right now is nitrogen, N2, about 78%. Okay. Another is oxygen, which is about 21%. Another is argon gas, which is about 0.9%. And then there are a multitude of other trace gases, but the important one for us is CO2, which is about 0.03%. What you need to remember is that in any mixture of gases like this, they're not all the same size, okay? They all exert what is known as a partial pressure. For instance, the partial pressure of air, or the pressure, standard air pressure at sea level, is 760 millimeters of mercury, mmHg, also known as 1 torr, also known as 1 atmosphere. Why do I bring that? Well, because each of these gases contribute to this total. If you really want to know, when you go home, you got nothing else to do, take a calculator out and multiply 0.78 by 760, and that'll tell you what the partial pressure of nitrogen is in the air. Multiply 0.21 by 760, 0.09 by 760, and that will tell you what the partial pressures are. And just for an exercise, you might want to do it because it'll help you understand when you look at the diagram and you look at the partial pressures of oxygen that are in the blood and in the alveoli, then you'll see why oxygen will diffuse. Because if the pressure's higher here than it is here, that means there's more of it here than there is here, and it's going to diffuse that way. Okay, and just, I make the kids do it because I want them to get used to using a calculator and understand partial pressures. Partial pressures are exerted by every constituent gas that makes up any mixture of gas. Okay? Remember Boyle's law? Boyle. Okay. Volume and pressure are inversely proportional. As the volume goes up, pressure goes down. And conversely, if the volume goes down, the pressure goes up. Again, Boyle's law, and I guess I should say that, it's assuming constant temperature, because there's 3 other gas laws that involve volume, pressure, and temperature, but volume and pressure, but they also involve temperature. If you heat a gas up, it's going to move faster, and it's going to make the pressure go up. Okay. Anyway, for our purposes, Boyle's law is the important one, because when that diaphragm contracts and it pulls down on the chest, okay, we get this increase in volume and a decrease in pressure. Air is pushed in. Remember that with a vacuum cleaner too.
Okay.
Science does not suck. It pushes. Okay?
All right.
All right.
On that note, you're wrapping it up.
I think we should wrap it, because I don't know what she's got me doing when I get home. Probably cooking. She hasn't been feeling well.